Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are taking a look at Destroy All Humans, the remake, remastered for current gen systems. Now, full disclosure, this game does have a lot of nostalgia for me. It's definitely in the top 5 games of my childhood, alongside stuff like Hitman Blood Money, Star Wars Battlefront 2, GTA Vice City. Pretty much all the games that you probably shouldn't let your child play, those were definitely in my top 5. So this is one of those. Now, we're going to kick it off with some pros in this game, what this game does really good. First thing is the graphics. The graphics overall are really, really great. The environment and cutscenes have definitely seen the biggest impact from this area. The NPCs, not so much, I would say. They don't look bad, but they look kind of weird. That's definitely in my cons section, so I'll talk more about that there. But the graphics for the environment and the cutscenes, really good. They've remastered all the camera work for the cutscenes even. If you look at it side by side, it's pretty crazy how big of a leap that things have come from the PS2 to the PS4 or the Xbox One. And so for the gameplay, this is probably Destroy All Humans' biggest strength. This game is just pure, good, old-fashioned fun. This is a game in its purest form, if you ask me. It doesn't worry about telling a super compelling, deep story or narrative. It doesn't worry about a million side quests like a Ubisoft world or something, and just like think of Odyssey, like with all those side quests. It doesn't really worry about that and meeting this benchmark of like, oh, we have to have 50 hours of gameplay, 100 hours of gameplay. This game's pretty short. It's actually very short. And I mean, I finished it in maybe 3 or 4 sittings, I would say. But this game is all about fun, and the humor goes hand in hand with that. The humor is really good. It's a little juvenile, but I think it lands the vast majority of the time. And so here's a little bit of the humor. Go ahead, check it out.
It is imperative we identify the dominant life forms on this world. Those lactating bovoids are likely candidates.
Surely you don't mean those foul-smelling gas bags beyond the fence?
Yes, I'm afraid I do.
But they're covered in nipples. We gotta crack some craniums. We gotta rescue him. He's gotta rescue me. I gotta... Brains, man, when do I get to blow things up?
So now moving on to the controls. They have revamped the controls definitely for the better. You can finally dual task with the controls. You can fly with your jetpack while zapping someone, while using your telekinesis to, pick someone up into the air. You can do, 3, 4 things at once in this game now instead of just having to do one thing. Along with that, I believe they've introduced it here. I don't think it was in the original skating. It's basically a hoverboard that you can unlock. At first, it's just kind of a dodge, but then once you fully upgrade it, it's unlimited hoverboarding, essentially. And then moving on from the controls, we have the sandbox gameplay. So this game is divided into many small missions. It's about 22 missions, and they're all short, I would say. Some are longer than others, but most are very short, that you can definitely pop this game in and play a level and be done within like probably 15-20 minutes depending on the level. It's very short, but you can always go back even after the game's finished and you can revisit all the locations that you've unlocked, and there's a good diverse selection of them. There's one that resembles like California, one that's Washington DC, of course, one that's just your classic farmland, like Midwestern looking farms, and obviously you can abduct cows as one of the achievements. And so that one's, obviously you have to include that one. If you're going to make an alien game, you have to include someplace with cornfields. And then So that's really great, the sandbox gameplay. And when you do revisit these, you can obviously go through, you can pick up these little robot things that have about 100 DNA, and you use that DNA to then upgrade crypto, the UFO, the weapons, your abilities. And so you can kind of round out whatever upgrades that you may have missed during the storyline. You can also partake in challenges. There's races, there's Rampage. Probably Rampage, or I think it's Rampage, is probably the most fun, I would say, where you get to be in your UFO and just decimate everything in the location, in the city or the town. You just go around trying to cause a certain dollar amount of damage. It's really fun. Similar stuff, I would say, to the Saints Row games. I know they had the Saints Row 3 remaster come out relatively recently. If you think about the challenges or the side missions, I guess, in that one where you have like the insurance side mission and the tank side mission, that's kind of similar to the stuff that they have here. There's 4 types. There's one that's like Rampage, but against like people or certain enemy types, maybe police or maybe the FBI type of, I think they're called Majestic. They're like the sort of FBI of the game. And then there's the one in the UFO. Then there's races where you use your skate, your hover. And then after that is abduction, where you abduct either military equipment or maybe you abduct cows, is the first one with that farmland. And so those are pretty fun. Getting 3 stars on a couple of those is extremely challenging, actually. The race in Washington, D.C., God, that probably took me at least a dozen times. It was very challenging to get 3 stars. You pretty much have to be perfect, and I think you're only allowed to miss like 1 DNA drop from the robot that you're following on your hoverboard. And so the challenges, to get 1 star, to get 2 stars is pretty easy, but to get 3 can be a really big challenge. Now, going from that is nostalgia. The last thing on my pros list is just pure nostalgia for old fans. It's an excellent and very faithful remaster. It's similar to Final Fantasy VII, how I said if you are a fan of the original Final Fantasy, I think you'll have that nostalgia there. They have that in this game for sure. And so if you played the original Destroy All Humans on PS2 and then you play this one, you're going to get right back into it. You're going to remember the controls, and you're just going to have a really great time. It's going to transport you back to 2005 or whenever that game came out. Now, we're going to go into a few cons because there are a couple. The first is that the NPCs, like I said before, they look a little weird. They look kind of, I don't know, plasticky, mannequin-y. They just don't look as good as the cutscenes or the environments or even crypto. The human NPCs just look very strange to me. The saving grace with that is that it does kind of go with the aesthetic that the game has a little bit. So it's not like bad. It's not bad graphics. It's just a weird choice, I think, and I'm not sure I would have gone with that. The next con is that there are 23 missions, like I said, but I think I said 22 by accident, but there are 23, and really going through those missions will only take you a few sessions. This is not a very long game. This isn't as long as Final Fantasy VII Remake. They both have that nostalgia factor, but FF7 is going to keep you, playing much longer than this will if you're just going by story. Now, the next thing is the stealth. The stealth / the holobob system is what they call it in this game. Basically, you use your telekinetic powers to basically take on the form of the human that you're scanning. And to keep it going, you basically have to read other humans' minds to keep the holobob up. And so that holobob, that stealth, it hasn't aged very well. It's not as fun, and any of the missions that are purely or very stealth based aren't nearly as replayable, in my opinion, as the ones where you just go crazy. Speaking of aging not so well, the UFO. Now, the UFO for the most part feels great. It's very satisfying. It has the main weapon, the UFO version of the Zap-O-Matic for crypto that has unlimited ammo is the Death Ray. And the Death Ray is really great. It's really fun. You can actually go into the sandbox worlds and you can make drawings in the ground with the Death Ray because it leaves marks that stay. It's very fun, it can be hilarious even. And the one thing that hasn't aged well about the UFO is aiming and just the controls of looking up and down, because there really isn't looking up and down. There's just moving your ship up and down, and the camera is stuck. It's static, and it's stuck at a downward angle. And it just doesn't feel very good. It doesn't feel very intuitive. And it can make it hard to hit some things at times. It's definitely the weakest part of the UFO, and along with the stealth and hollow bob are the things that have aged the worst in this game, and the things that maybe they should have gone back and revamped just a little bit. I like that they kept it faithful, but those two things probably could have used some tweaking for a modern audience. Now, going on to the score of this game. For a fan of the original Destroy All Humans, this game, in my opinion, and I say this because I'm a fan of the original, so this score goes for me personally. This game is a 10 out of 10, a Picasso. This game is amazing. It's a must-buy, basically. It's 100% just based on fun factor. That's what this game is aiming for, is just to let you have fun. And after playing this, you'll kind of realize that it's surprisingly rare for a game nowadays to be so focused on fun. There's so many games that are focused on being 100 hours or more. There's so many games that have these huge budgets, and they're so worried about making that budget back that they have to have microtransactions, or they feel like they have to fit in a multiplayer. And this game is basically the opposite of all that. This game is a real games game. It is all about the fun factor. So I'm going to leave it off there. This game's a 10 out of 10 if you're a fan of the original. If you're a newcomer, I still think it's a 9 out of 10. Still, this would probably be my most recommended game for anyone. So with all that being said, I'll go ahead, wrap it up. Go ahead, do me a favor, smack that like button, hit subscribe, ding the notification bell so you can be notified of when future videos are released, and I'll see you guys on the next game review.
Our destination, the planet Earth.